9. Ignition sequence start. 6.
Hello, and welcome to Launchpad, Rocket Fuel's interview series with people who are prominent members of either the Rocket Pool community or building on projects that are related to Rocket Pool. Today's guest is JT Nichol, who is an extremely famous moderator of Reddit's ETH Finance subreddit. JT's been involved in the crypto space for many years now. He has an amazing reputation for being just like a cool guy who everybody loves and like super friendly guy. And that's not to, of course, take away from like the numerous contributions he's made to the Ethereum ecosystem. Today, the main thing that JT is going to be talking about is Rocket School, which you have seen mentioned on Rocket Fuel the last like at least a bunch of times. And we're going to finish the episode with JT talking about Rocket School. But before we get to Rocket School, we're going to start off like learning a little bit about who JT is, what the path his life has taken him to get up to this point, and all the amazing adventures and stories along the way. So welcome, JT, to Rocket Fuel's Launchpad. How are you today?
Yeah, my name is JT, a.k.a. Jeremiah Nichol from the Kansas City area. As Whack Whack said, a Reddit moderator on ETH Finance, formerly of ETH Trader. Some of you may know a bit about my history, but for those of you that don't, it's kind of crazy, man. I have been in crypto now going on 10 years. It's
amazing,
just, yeah. It's nuts. And so upon first hearing that, a lot of people would probably assume that I've got like 3 different flavors of Lambos parked in my granite garage or something. Could be far from the truth. The journey into crypto for me was kind of one out of a little bit of angst, to be quite honest. It wasn't I wasn't looking at it as a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed investment strategy by any stretch. It's a true story. We received notice from our homeowners insurance just to set the playing field here.
Yeah,
my wife and I are both at this time we're both public school teachers. Okay. But we really wanted to have our kids in like private Catholic school, not just one kid, but all 4 of them. And that comes at a very, very huge cost. Anyway, so we live in this tiny, I always joke, it's a 1 living room home. We've called it home for years. We still live in the same place. But anyway, we got a notice from the homeowners insurance that they were not going to cover the roof on our house. And which was strange because we bought it on first time home buyers, and my wife was real puzzled, and I was even more puzzled because to get the first time home buyers type of loan, that would have been signed off on an inspector. Anyway, fast forward, we don't really have money to be putting on a roof. I had to take out a second mortgage. Out of the second mortgage, this is a big no-no for all of you crypto investors, but I was so pissed off at the world and just the way things were trying to get ahead. I ended up doing a lot of the work myself on the roof. And I took some of the money and put it into Bitcoin.
Amazing.
I never told my wife. All right. Second mistake. So number 1 mistake, don't put your mortgage into crypto. And the second one is don't be hiding stuff from your wife. Anyway, fast forward, I learned about Ethereum, and that was it, man. The rabbit hole bit me early.
Wonderful.
And there was no going back. I remember I made a post on ETH Trader, a subreddit that I was moderating at the time, that I'm all in. I sold all my Bitcoin into Ethereum, and that brought a lot of raised eyebrows because they're like, why would you do that to your portfolio? Well, it ended up still to this day being a good decision. And I remember that $3,000, it did multiply a couple times, and I thought, okay, I'm going to tell my wife, and she's going to be so impressed with me. No, further from the truth. Big problems in marriage land, you know. So anyway, she learned how to forgive me after, you know, taking care of some bills, and so that chapter like closed, and now it's like just part of the daily routine. So
wonderful.
Going back to ETH Trader for a second. Yeah, Whack, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go ahead. Tell me about ETH Trader.
Well, ETH was kind of like this home on the internet for the early Ethereum enthusiasts, of which you were there. SuperFiz was there. Anthony Sassano was there. David Hoffman, Ryan Sean Adams, DC Investor, Mr. Yukon C. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. All these notable people. Trent Van Epps, Preston Van Loon from Prismatic Labs. I mean, just incredible. So you had our Ethereum, which was the technical sub, and then you had ETH Trader, which was the trading and memes. Anyway, that was my home. And even while I was teaching and still investing and then eventually mining and everything like that, it was just this place that I went to every day. It was like a well of information. It's just incredible. And still to this day, after several years, and I don't know if we want to get into the backstory of how the sub split, but basically ETH Trader lead moderators decided it was going to be time to go along with the Reddit Red Hats. We signed NDAs with Reddit and the Red Hat admins about tokenizing karma on the subreddit as an experiment. It was the first of its kind, and I don't know that a lot of people know that, but the ETH Trader donuts were the first ERC20 karma tokenization. Anyway, a lot of us moderators didn't like the distribution and the way it was going to unfold, and the Reddit accounts are free. There's no buy-in or anything like that. So 6 of us left, and that was August 18th of 2018 or 19. I think it was 19. Yeah.
18, I think. Maybe
18.
19.
It would have been strong, man. It's like 6 years ago.
19. Yeah, 19.
It was 19. Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So we left, we branched off and formed ETH Finance, which now has like 90,000 members. At the time, I remember ETH was like at around $200 or so. It was after the big crash, after that bull market. And then there was some cascade liquidations of maker vaults and like just all kinds of stuff going on, and it brought that price way down. Well, the moderators were like, we would be fine if like 500 people came over to ETH Finance. I was done. Like, I was kind of done trying to be a moderator. I knew that it was going to be a big gamble trying to start and bootstrap a network like on Reddit and hope that people came. And by golly, within 48 hours, like 10,000 accounts moved over. And it was like, it got written about in some publications. Like, it was just this mass human migration that was in the bottom of a bear market of all places. So we knew right away there's still a ton of smart people that could understand the issues that were going on. And to this day, ETH Trader's still humming along with its 2 or 3 million accounts, or however that sub is working now. And then ETH Finance has still got the daily thread, and that's weaving into another story about how we're using Reddit moderator tools to keep track of some of the best comments of the day, called the Dudes. And then we have a weekly podcast that celebrates the best dudes of the week, but that's a whole nother topic. But that kind of brings us up to the point of like where I got into crypto, and then the formation of ETH Finance. But then finally leaving teaching is when I took my first big leap of faith into crypto full time, when I left to go do video production work.
Yeah, so let's actually go all the way back to the beginning now, and like you've given us a really great taste of what's to come in the story ahead. But why did you become a public school teacher? Like, how did that happen?
I often joke that Division II college was like the best 8 years of my life. So I was a rock band manager. I had a 7-piece band with a horn section. I played trombone. I was a music major, and it just felt like a natural fit to go into education after that. The rock band thing wasn't going to pan out. It was going to be really hard to get out of Kansas, unless you're the band Kansas, obviously, from the 70s. But so we actually did get to play in front of a few different groups. We did get looked at by some labels, but it wasn't going to work out. So the other option was to go teach. And I always kind of like enjoyed school environment anyway. And so I didn't become a band instructor at a high school. I became an elementary school children's music teacher. And it was so rewarding. Like, I really enjoyed doing that work. It was a lot of work, but man, we rocked the house because professionally I do DJ work on the weekends for weddings, corporate events. So I have all this sound and lighting. I'm like, hey, if I got all this sound and lighting, let's put it to use. And so I would do these big productions with like 250 kids on stage at the same time.
Wow.
But we weren't singing like On Top of Old Smoky. We were singing like Owl City's like Fireflies. We used to sing like Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Doobie Brothers, Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, Michael Jackson, and and country music. And when I would reach out to these artists and ask them for autographs, and I ended up getting like several autographs from
Amazing,
really notable artists. And the trick of getting the autograph is say, hey, would you write it to the students of my school instead of to me? That way they knew it wasn't an autograph hound, and they stayed in the school. They're still at the school where I taught. They still hang up on the wall in the music room. So yeah, because I figured like I want to have fun in my job no matter what I do, and that's what I did for 18 years. I did that, and it was. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, I know that some of that production value and the flair for the dramatic has kind of followed you over the years, right? And, we're going to be talking about that later as well. But I know that, like, you mentioned you do a Daily Doots podcast every Friday afternoon that's recorded live. And you definitely bring, like, the sound effects and all that great stuff to that as well. So I think it's just in your soul, JT, that, that expression, that sense of expression and like the artistry is like, it just comes out from every pore of your body. So that's really cool. I remember seeing some of your videos back in the day that you shared of like your classroom and things like that, and it just looked like such a great place for kids to be. How was it when was you were still a teacher, right, when you got into crypto, like 10 years ago? Did it like impact your teaching at all, like in the beginning? Like how did that happen?
So no, I didn't let it impact my teaching. Sometimes I would film videos and talk about crypto in the classroom, but I would do that before school or after school.
Yeah.
But I did, I caught the bug so bad with the crypto. I wanted to teach the kids about it. And that was something that they always liked about Mr. Nichol's classroom, is that I would go off the rails. Sometimes I feel like sometimes the best bonds you can have with a teacher is when you can get an insight into their world as in other ways than the subject matter they're teaching. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that a really exciting math teacher doesn't just talk about algebra at home at dinner time, right? So with the music side of things, I would try to incorporate other lessons about technology and whatnot. So, I was even thinking back then about, wow, what a cool way to do like a tokenized, like a award system or something where kids could receive like, these days it would have worked pretty good on like Gnosis chains. Gnosis chain with like a POAP, right? To where if a kid, did some kind of task, they could have a wallet where they would get a POAP. And I mean, let's face it, a scratch and sniff sticker on a spelling test is going to end up in the trash. But if it was a POAP, that would stay with all the way through school. And I got to thinking, well, hell, that's almost like I hate to use the word social credit score, but if you have a kid that has stacks of POAPs going from kindergarten all the way through graduation day, I mean, a college could look at their POAP collection of what they got. You know what I mean? It's like those are little things that you can't, like, you can hand out those things to tell a kid who's maybe a kind of a troubled kid, on this day you deserve this because you were good. And I recognize that. And that sticks with kids, man. When they are recognized far beyond, the little A+ on the paper, it's something that's very sticky. It stays with them. It can really build up their ego and build up their sense of, like, you know what I mean? They want to succeed. They want to do good. They want to be caught doing good. So I was thinking, man, how can we do like colored coins of some kind where like teachers could, spelling colored coins would be like yellow and reading would be red and science would be blue or whatever. And they could just get little accolades that go right in the grade book, but then also assign it straight over to a wallet.
Nice. So
almost like bees in a jar,
Yeah. So when did you hear about crypto for the first time? Do you remember when you heard about it?
My brother, Oh my gosh, this is funny. My brother was talking about Bitcoin right after Bitcoin hit its first all-time high that went over $1,000. I think it hit like $1,200. And
That's
then
right.
I ended up buying Bitcoin on the way down from that, starting at around 600, I think. And then I think I even bought some as low as 200 or something. And then,
Wow.
but when folks hear this, they're thinking that I was buying like $1,000 worth at a time. Let's go back to rewind the tape.
Yeah.
I was a teacher.
Yeah.
With 4 kids in private school, you know, so it was like $50 a week would have been like kind of borderline stupid, you know,
Yeah.
like you're like credit card interest, crypto, credit card interest, crypto. So to answer your question, my brother showed me this thing called Reddit. Okay.
Wow.
And it was the article about Bitcoin. So there was 2 Easter eggs in that one conversation. I'm like, what is Bitcoin and what is Reddit?
Wow.
And then I was hooked. I mean, I was hooked. Because I was like fascinated. I got to thinking, you know, Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. Why? Because we are from the video game era. We like high scores. We put a lot of faith and value in things that are intangible to the hands. So that's true for money. It could be true for money. We already make it true for these points, you know, on a video game, you know. So digital collectibles was kind of teasing my brain, but this idea of Reddit with the long form conversation, I'm like, I have to do both of these. And then it was like, once I got into our Bitcoin, the subreddit, I hated how toxic all the big block, small block conversation was. Nauseating. And then once I watched Rise and Rise of Bitcoin, the documentary, and there was a very young 17-year-old Vitalik Buterin who talked on camera for no more than 10 seconds. And the teacher in me could see that kid. And I'm like, there's something special going on here. And I don't know what it is, but I'm going to pay attention to whatever comes next. And sure enough, Ethereum white paper, the Ethereum deposit site where you could buy the Ethereum Genesis tokens, you know, what was it, 2000 for 1 Bitcoin or something way back in the day.
That's right.
I
It was like,
not do that. I did not do that, but I was looking real hard at it.
Yeah, so it was 2000 ETH for 1 Bitcoin, and I think Bitcoin at the time was like $600. So it was about 36 cents each. Yeah, which when you think about it, that is pretty amazing. But yeah, I wasn't around then either. You said there was like a lot of toxicity in the Bitcoin community. What kind of things were they talking about? What was going on there?
It was a big block, small block. It was basically, you could see that the protocol was stagnating. It was I remember when I first learned about Bitcoin, it was going to be like this way you could buy coffee because there was going to be scaling and there was going to be these things possibly called smart contracts. And like, we have this whole world of utopia and crypto and anarchy and all this stuff. And it was kind of fun and mesmerizing. And then the Bitcoin community, it was a Thanos. And then also Bitcoin Talk, the forums, you know, it just, it got really ugly. And it was like, I don't really want to be associated with these people anymore. So it just seems strange.
So those discussions were already happening in like 2015, even though like, you know, the Bitcoin Cash fork didn't happen until 2017, right? So had those discussions really been going on for that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just ugly. It was just ugly. And it was also really hard to talk about anything that was an alternate coin. So ETH at that time was just a, you know, obvious, you know, to them, it was just going to be another cash grab, you know, shit coin. Like there's at that time, there was so many different, you know, they were taking the Bitcoin protocol and copying and pasting it and changing a parameter and calling it, you know, whatever. There was just 1,000 different coins that were popping off, and Ethereum wasn't getting the reputation that I felt that it deserved. And I mean, you know what? Ethereum had a lot to prove. It was a pretty lofty bet, but I just had a feeling that Vitalik was like bright enough to see it through, and the people You could tell early on the people who were going to be working on that, they were serious about this vision. And of course, the roadmap went from 1 Lubin to 5 Lubins in length, but here we are. So, you know, it was just one of those deals where it was just going to take some time. So it did. And eventually, everything kind of got on track. And then I feel like once, you know, fast forward, once the proof of stake went through, it was like, man, we have totally arrived. And it's like the naysayers they can say whatever they want. I feel like we saw the biggest part of it through was to get that protocol going on proof of stake. Boom.
Hey, welcome back.
Okay, so I was riffing on seeing Vitalik and then knowing that the protocol was going to be okay, especially once we got through to proof of stake. So I don't know where we want to go back.
Actually, I was going to say it might be a good idea.
I you and I was still talking.
Oh, you got booted, so yeah.
Oh, it didn't matter. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about Lubins, and they got actually get an echo again.
Check 1 2.
Hello. Yeah, I'm still hearing it.
Let me put on this echo.
Now.
Check 1 2.
Yeah, I'm still I'm still hearing it. I don't know why that is.
Check 1 2. Yep.
Hello. Yeah, it's still there.
Let me shut off OBS. Do you hear echo still?
No, it's gone. It's gone now. No, it's still there. Actually,
it's still there. Check 1 2. Yep. Okay, so it's not OBS.
Yep.
Okay, it says it can be changed while recording. The echo cancellation toggle switch on here. Can you pause recording and then I'll hit it?
I can stop recording and then we can like stitch it afterwards.
Yep.
So let's stop.
And you can see that like the roadmap was going to take a little bit longer than, you know, as all things are with programming. You know, it went from 1 Lubin to like 5 Lubins. But once we made it all the way to proof of stake, I mean, there was no turning back at that point. We had seen successful EIP integrations going on, you know, year after year after year. Did they all deliver on time? No, they stopped doing all the deadlines, but you know what? They kept plugging away at it. And it just gave me a lot of faith in like the type of people that were working in this protocol. It's like they want to see, you know, the original vision of like Satoshi really come to life in a very fruitful way. So, so it was, I guess this just goes back to, you know, why I fell in love with it in the first place. And then it was, you know, even more reason why I wanted to become a Reddit moderator. And the Reddit moderator side of things, at least for ETH was that we wanted to, you know, curtail some of that trollish behavior that we noticed so prevalent in the other ecosystems or the other subreddits like our Bitcoin, our cryptocurrency. We just wanted to be a meaningful place for people to gather and talk to each other like they're in the same room.
That's really cool. Let's come back to that in a minute, about like the vibes in ETH at the time. Let me talk to you about like your wife. You said earlier that you didn't tell her when you bought Bitcoin. Like, what were you thinking? What was happening at that time, like to keep it from her? I know you said there was the mortgage thing, but tell me a little bit more about it.
She was, she's the daughter of a husband and wife that went through the Great Depression. They fought in World War II. My wife's the youngest of 15. Yeah, the youngest of 15. Her parents were married over 70 years. They had 15 kids. They buried 5 of their kids. William, her father, was a Purple-Hearted Iwo Jima in World War II. They spent 4 years of World War II away from each other after having just gotten married. It's quite the story. It should be a Nicholas Sparks movie for real. I mean, It's just as good as The Notebook. Just they saved all of their love letters. Anyway, my broader point is my wife didn't grow up in a house with even a video game, or she thinks that you know, it would still be a decent idea to have a landline telephone. She is She is not technological at all. And I just knew it was going to be a dead conversation if I said, hun, we should take some of this money and throw it away into something called cryptocurrency. That would have been like a full stop, no go kind of situation. But I was so pissed off at the world for, having to take out a second mortgage to put a roof over our head that we already had. And I just felt like, man, we already got credit card debt, car payment, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I made an oath to myself. They're not getting it all. Not every paycheck from here on out. They're not getting everything. I may carry over some interest, screw you, Dave Ramsey, I got to do something different because this ain't working out. Like this working 3 different jobs. I mean, I literally DJ every weekend. I was DJing for the Catholic school system so we could get some help on tuition. And then in the summer times when I wasn't teaching, I was shoveling pigeon shit, whatever it took to make ends meet. And funny enough, I worked for a guy for 15 years in the summers. Literally working in all of his buildings that he owns. He owns like 40 properties. And I got him into Ethereum eventually, and now he lets me use one of his building spots rent free for my work now. It's kind of like a little pay it forward from 6 years ago has done pretty well for him, which ended up being good for me too. So
that's so great.
Yeah, shout out to you, John. Thank you, bud. So yeah.
Okay, so like your brother changes your life, basically tells you about Bitcoin and Reddit in one fell swoop. Does he know about the impact that it's had on your life since then? Like, has he followed along with that journey?
Well, he never invested. He always he kind of thought about, well, the story's pretty good. He heard about Bitcoin, and showed me the Reddit, and I saw the post and everything about it hitting all-time high, and he was trying to. He's a computer IT guy. And so he kind of missed that train a little bit, but I didn't even know that I was on a train at that time, but I was still buying it, In fact, speaking of the shitcoin roulette, I started doing work for a cryptocurrency called Hyper Crypto. We ended up getting a WEC cage fighter. He got what is it? Is it WEC? I believe. Yeah. So his name's John Fitch. And we got him on the World Series of Fighting 30 as the main headline event in Las Vegas with hyper crypto on his trunks. And so I was helping to kind of promote that thing back then. But guess what I was doing? I was working with an Anon developer who ended up rugging the whole stack. That was the first time I had hitched my pony to a scam artist. Not that, I mean, he did produce a product and it was being used as it was, all the rage to have a gaming currency. And I just assumed, oh, well, Satoshi was anonymous, so this guy's anonymous, right? So we're all good. Anyway, fast forward back to my brother, or rewind back to my brother. Eventually, when Ethereum was set to launch and people could mine it, I sat down my accountant. I asked him for money, and then I had I was to pay attention to the news and releases, and then I forced my brother. I said, dude, you're going to help set up these miners, take all that engineering and smarts that you have as an IT guy. And we ended up running graphics cards in the basement of the accountant's office.
Nice.
In the days of Ethereum mining. And it was funny because we had to make our accountant whole. And so we cashed out it's an absurd amount of coins at whatever the price was so he could pay for a kitchen, which I think the market value of that kitchen today is 1.5 million probably or more. And I was begging him. I said, not yet. And he's like, no. Yeah. So we had to pay him back. And I mean, we were splitting up things 3 ways or whatever, but had it not been for the accountant, had it not been for the brother, we wouldn't have been mining it in those early days. And we did that for about a year, and then we
Nice.
sold all the stuff. So in fact, I think we sold the graphics cards and bought ETH with it.
Nice. That's great. Okay, JT, tell me about leaving the R Bitcoin and finding ETH Trader. Like, what was the story there? Like, how did you find ETH Trader? Like, what happened?
Instantly after finding out about Ethereum and already having started a Reddit account, immediately searched our Ethereum, got on there, and then on the sidebar, our ETH Trader. And then on ETH Trader, I was there in the daily every day, multiple times a day. Like that was my home. That was what I was just born to be there. And so I was there when there was less than like 300 people in the room. And
Wow.
yeah, at least first 500. It was well under 1,000. And Mr. Yukon C, he was a guy, he's a legend. Shout out to Mr. Yukon C. He was helping me and my brother do the mining side. He was running or a big figure on our Ether mining subreddit. We became good friends. And then the sub started to grow rather quickly. Carl, who's the founder of our ETH Trader, and then there was, I think, Helium Craft and a couple other people. Eventually, it ended up being like, I was there so often, and I was just like, we need to ban these spammers and this. And I was like, hey, I'll be happy to help moderate. So it was just a labor of love and volunteership. And I would post little fireside chats by my fire pit in the backyard. And I would post food memes. It was like we had, every time the price went up, we had a new dollar figure. And donuts, that was by Cyrus Unessi. He said, and I quote, "If Ethereum ever hits $13, I'm going to celebrate by getting a donut." And so donuts were forever the $13 mark. So some days it was donut day, some days it was pizza day. And I would like do the lunch menu for the actual school I worked in. And then like the joke of the day, just because we like the off topic shit post too. You know, we made it like a really casual, welcoming place to come. And maybe it was a little too casual and a little too welcoming at times, but I was always just a big fan of like just the funny natured people that are there. Just, there was so much wholesomeness there, even though it could be kind of high stress. You know, obviously when the DAO hack happened, it was a really vital source of news and up-to-date information. And, you know, as moderators, we can take notes on people. And so I started taking notes using Reddit Enhancement Suite. And then eventually that became so much more useful than just taking notes on people. And the reason why we take notes on people is so if somebody says something, we can actually back them up if somebody else is calling them out. And we can say, no, actually on this day or whatever, they mentioned, you know, XYZ. And we can see how many times you've like upvoted or downvoted people. There's a lot of really handy ways to use Reddit Enhancement Suite, not just as moderators, but just in general. And so I encouraged people to tag each other using desktop Reddit Enhancement Suite, still do to this day because it's super handy because you can put a colored label. There's just no other platform like that. I don't even think that any of the Web3 newfangled like social media platforms allow the amount of tooling to keep track of people and kind of compartmentalize like a Rolodex, like the notable people in your life. And so having those tools is really helpful. And then, yeah, it just kind of carried on from there. Like there's just so many valuable insights and people. And then, you know, my brother cautioned me. He's like, bro, you should not be a public figure. You should stop putting yourself out there. You're telling them where you're from. You're easy to find on the internet. You're completely doxable. And he's right. And I've paid the price for that over the years. But I mean, I shouldn't have to pay a price. They're the criminals, right? So I'm, enough victim blaming on myself. But I just felt like, man, if everybody runs around this world worried about all this, hacking and stuff, then what are we even really here for? And so I got over that fear. I mean, it's still there. I'm not a fool. It's too late now. And it's like, there's so many notable public figures in all different kinds of industries. We can't be just running around fearing all the time that the boogaloo's coming after us.
I think for
Yeah.
you though, there was an actual hack, right? So can you tell us like what happened with your hack and
Yeah.
like how that changed like the trajectory of your like crypto life?
Yeah. So I was, this is like this wasn't just getting hacked. The first time I got hacked, was they got into my Kraken account, and I had two-factor on, but I think I had SMS two-factor on, which at the time I don't even know if you could even use a YubiKey or hardware on Kraken. So for the listeners that don't know SMS, like standard messaging service, to get into your account, they'll text you a 6-digit code. Well, that's fine until somebody SIM swaps your phone number, which is what happened to me. So I got SIM swapped. I immediately got locked out of all my email accounts, my crypto accounts. My Kraken account had 41 ETH turned into Bitcoin and sent to a Russian exchange. And that was that. And then I reported all that to the police, thinking it was just gone into the ether, no pun intended. And then it ended up happening that we were able to subpoena AT&T. Using the AT&T phone records, they were able to determine where the SIM swap took place. They gave my blockchain data over to the React Task Force, which is a multi-jurisdictional, national, federal, state, and local agency that fights cybercrime. And they ended up catching a kid, 19 years old, named Joe Ortiz. Not just him, but they did catch some. There's some other accomplices that they were looking at as well. Anyway, Joel got 10 years in prison. I was one of several victims that lost in all millions of dollars. And he's in California serving a 10-year sentence. He's probably in year number 4. The judge asked if the victims wanted to be there in person for sentencing or if they wanted to write a letter. I did a written letter and a video of me reading the letter, and I sent that to him. And eventually that story got picked up by MTV. There's an MTV episode called True Life Crime, and I'm in there as a little bit of a blip. But I forgive the kid. I'm really sad for the fact that he was the valedictorian of his class, and he just threw it all away
Wow.
on a just a dumb. I mean, when you're screwing around with cryptocurrency across state lines, it's now a major felony. And sadly, I don't know what his life is going to look like after he gets out. I mean, maybe he ends up getting into cryptocurrency as like a security, expert. That's my hope for him. Yeah. I'll never see the money again. I am named as part of the restitution for that case, but I don't expect that I'll ever see that again. So the SIM swap occurred, and I actually got SIM swapped a second time. And this is after I put a SIM lock on my account at AT&T. For all of your listeners, I'm going to tell you straight to your freaking soul that telecommunications and their SIM system is pure security theater. Everything is for sale. Okay, everything. So the faster you can get your phone number away from things as a way to dial into things and move on to authenticator applications, or best yet, use hardware keys for your security, the better. And obviously, split up your assets and whatnot. But I'm going to go back to that first hack, because the second thing out of that first hack happened that was dramatic. My Bitcoin Talk account, which is a big cryptocurrency forum that was more heavily populated back, 5-10 years ago, they took my Bitcoin Talk account and they sold it, and they verified it on chain as a transfer to a new account or to a new person. So I had no way of getting my JT Nichol Bitcoin Talk account back. That was eventually used because it had high merit. It was a long account with like accolades, like 5 stars, like old account. it had been marinated long enough, I guess you could say, that it was being used to perpetuate an $18 million ICO in 2017
No.
by a company called Open Platform. This is where the story gets even crazier. Is there was a guy that showed up in the daily who messaged me. He goes, "Oh my gosh, is this the real JT?" I'm like, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, thank you so much for selling us your Bitcoin Talk account for Open Platform, the ICO that we're working on." I'm like, "I didn't sell anything to anyone. What are you talking about?" And I go and I look at my Bitcoin. Oh my God. The announcement page, all of this stuff was being in my name. I immediately went to the SEC, the CFTC, the California Department of Business Oversight. I reported it to IC3, which is like the fraud and internet prevention, blah, blah, blah. I just made it well known that that was not me, because these guys were acting as anons. And I tracked down their offices in San Francisco. I have all of whack. I could show you a Google Doc that shows all of the deleted posts from that forum. I can show you all of the crypto influencers on YouTube that they paid to peddle that coin, because I backed up all of their videos, even though a lot of those influencers deleted them or deleted their channels altogether, because during the ICO days, they were doing exactly that. And these guys got away with anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe 18 million out of the 30 they were trying to raise. I said 18 earlier. I think 18 was the final figure. The guy that messaged me on Reddit was kind of associated with the team, but he was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know. I said, "Tell them to give me my account back. Tell them to give." "Well, we can't. They're asking me, can we give it back to you after we're done with the sale?" I'm like, give it back to me, bro. Like, I have all of this dialogue that I've saved. And he's actually since reached out, even in the last 2 years. This was like 7 years ago. He's reached out in the last couple of years. He's like, "I'm so sorry that happened. I hope you can forgive me." I'm like, I cannot forgive you. Like, you know the people that did this to me, and you sat on your hands. The CEO of that company disbanded and went to Singapore. He fled the country. It's stupid. It's like an insane story that I have no business being a part of, but here we are.
I feel like there's a lot of stories that you shouldn't have been a part of, but you've been a part of, JT, over the years.
You know, I dub myself the Charlie Brown of crypto for a reason. I'm just like, it's like Lucy with the football, right? You know, she pulls the rug out and then Charlie Brown lands on his head. That's me. I just keep pulling forward in life.
So how did you respond emotionally to that theft? You know, that was a significant amount of crypto.
Tears. I mean, it was tears. It's just fear. It's not done when you think it's done. Because you don't know what they still know. You don't know what other accounts they're creeping on and sleeping on and just waiting for things to move again. You just don't. So a lot of you just had to just shut shit down and start over, you know, to get fresh, you know. Don't be afraid to make a fresh address and your, email address, and, use password managers smartly, and just,
What year was that?
2017, I believe. I'd have to look. Yeah, it was right there in the ICO days.
So then once the the bull market was in full swing, then, right? Like, ETH kind of went crazy, hitting all-time highs by the beginning of 2018, leading up all the way into 2017. How was that for you? Like, did you buy back in, or did you just kind of stay along because
I just had to keep doing what I was doing. I didn't have any money sitting on the side to recoup that. That was a massive hit.
Of course.
I mean, 41 ETH on the day that it went away. It was 40 grand worth of tokens, probably. I'm guessing, or 14 grand. I'm trying to remember kind of what the price was. That was like well more than 25% of a year's salary as a teacher. I was making $39,000, $40,000 a year. I mean, that $50 a week was like, that was risky. I couldn't do it every week. So to lose 41 ETH out of all that, mining, and like, it was devastating. It's always devastating. The second time they got to me, though, I should finish what I did differently, was I had I had hardware security that I had whitelisted addresses to withdraw, and it had to be a hardware security device to do the withdrawal. So even though they were able to somehow gain access, and like I don't know how they did it, like restored the phone from the cloud onto a new device, and then I don't know how that works. Like, were they able to restore my Google Authenticator? And so scary, man. So then it's just, you just had to lock down, like keep locking stuff down. Doesn't matter how little or small. If they find a way, they may not take everything they can at once. You don't know. Maybe they're just sitting there sipping away at your soul, and you're sitting there just bleeding slowly, and you don't even know that they know, or that you don't even know that they're in your stuff. You know? Ugh, it's scary, man.
So then, ETH hits the all-time highs. Like, how was the sentiment in ETH trader at the time? How were you feeling at the time?
I think the one good thing I did was on the way up, probably the most beneficial taking money off the table moment I ever had was like all of like $70,000 to pay off our house. Because I'm telling you, we live in a hobbit hole, but it's our hobbit hole. And it's got that fire pit in the backyard, and that's kind of like all we need. We put a family of 6 through a house that some people would consider the size of their living room. And so for me to, and my wife had some student loans, I guess, some leftovers there. So there was 2 envelopes underneath the tree that year. And that was like the most heartfelt, meaningful, like, I love you moment. And I mean, I was in tears writing the checks out, because there's a lot of pain that went into getting to that point. And one big lie, getting into Bitcoin with our second mortgage. That was a pretty big lie, but that kind of smoothed things over a bit, being able to do those 2 little things,
So then, as you were getting into crypto more and more, like, what did your wife think of it after you came clean to her? And like,
she thinks I talk to aliens. She's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "Oh, these are my friends, Mr. Yukon C, Beer Belly Fat Ass, Drogi." Like, are they people? I'm like, "Yeah, they're people. Are you kidding me? What do you think they are? Aliens?" She's like, "I think they might be." Well, maybe you're right. You're right. She kind of thinks like it's kind of a brain worm. Even to this point, even to this day, she's like, it's all you can think about. It's all you can talk about. Well, it's simply not true. It's just my line of work now. When I was teaching and I was talking about it, it could be a little overwhelming. But now that I'm not teaching and my job is in the space, is it really work at that point? It'd be like accusing a carpenter of not nerding out over awesome table saws,
Yeah, of course.
I'm in this space now. It's not like I work in an office and all I can do is talk about table saws after work. It's like you gotta, there's a balance though. I mean, I do have to shut stuff off a little bit, but yeah, she doesn't understand it. She doesn't care to understand it. That's just the bottom line. That's how she's built, So I'm not even trying to explain to her, I you know what I can't wait for, Whack Whack? I can't wait for the day when there is some loyalty rebate for like Target or TJ Maxx or Old Navy that is redeemed using the Ethereum blockchain. And I'll be like, that's the reason. That's why this stuff is important. Do you know how much money those corporations save to make that deal with you? I mean, it only cost them 0.001 cents in gas to execute that smart contract. Isn't that amazing? She's like, just give me my, $30 $8 back. I'm like, you're using it without even knowing it. We're there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Loyalty points, Visa's doing some stuff with patents. It's kind of fun.
That's right. Okay, tell me about some of the superstars of ETH trader back in those days. So you mentioned like SuperFiz, DC Investor. Let's talk about those guys first of all before we talk about some of the others. How was SuperFiz back in the day? Like, because he's so well known now, right? Like in the Rocket Pool community and elsewhere. Like, tell me about Fizz.
Well, just in general, all those guys. SuperFiz has always been the welcoming first kind of guy. He's He's just such a star for so many reasons. When his calling was that. I mean, it goes back again to I felt like I was being called to be a moderator, not to be like a leader. I just wanted to be a moderator. I wanted to help clean up the room day to day. I always joke that I'm just a trash guy, like a custodian. If we can establish the culture of a subreddit, the rest will take care of itself. And that's where people like SuperFiz can breathe. And that's where a person like David Hoffman and Anthony Sassano and Ryan Sean Adams and DC Investor, they can have a platform to really like put it out there and, get criticized for it, have a conversation about it, what have you. I mean, and then I remember pretty clearly, like early days, I think SuperFiz was even asking me to help out on ETH Staker a little bit. Nick Sorakish, oh my gosh, Colfax, who was at Lamboshi, Patricio Warthalter. There's another one that was on ETH Trader. I could just clearly see SuperFiz was like, this is what I need to do. I need to do the ETH Staker thing. And then we helped ETH Staker with their auto mod and get their subreddit set up and all their styling things. And look at them, boom, it just took off. So SuperFiz found his calling, and in the same way that so many of us do. I mean, at least for the bankless guys, they felt their calling was to get out there more broadly and go like project even more information and actually make a living doing it, for better or for worse with whatever sponsorship deals they could get. They're getting their nut, dude. And I think there's such a net positive for the industry as a whole over the years. It's just been great to see. DC Investor is a one-man NFT band out there on Twitter, not just NFTs, but just in general. He's found his calling. Just he loves getting out there on Twitter and saying profound things and getting people to think and engage. And then Anthony Sassano, his calling is to do the daily Gwei every single day. I mean, that man he grinds every single day. Week in Ethereum. You got Week in Ethereum with Evan Van Ness. Evan and I used to talk on the phone quite a bit. We still chat on Reddit all the time. He's been, I think I read that he might be winding that down after however many years. That's the longest continuously ran weekly newsletter in this space. So Evan was there on ETH Trader way back too. And people are just like branching out and they're finding their, but these were their roots. I say that with full conviction that a lot of this started on Reddit. It didn't start on Bitcoin Talk. I mean, some of it may have been over on there, but also maybe a little bit on 4chan. But I feel like the conversation is either right inside the Ethereum.org forums or more broadly on Reddit. And it's still today, it amazes me just the number of lurkers that are there every day. I mean, we're in bull market times again, so our daily has like, 800 comments or something. But you could be pretty damn sure that they're all real people, There's nothing to be gained in our sub for like karma up voting other people and trying to, enforce the conversation. We kicked all the spammers to the side. We're a pretty boring place for like click farms to venture into anymore versus some other subreddits.
So one of the things that I love about ETH Trader back then and then ETH Finance later, we're going to get to the schism later, is so many people even in the Rocket Pool community started off there, right? I started off there. Jasper was 6 soldiers that you might come across. He still posts like a whole bunch of people, even like Marso ETH was there as well. So many people who are so well known in the Rocket Pool community call ETH Finance and but some of them ETH Trader as well, like their first home. And that's why it was my favorite place on the internet. Like ETH Finance is still a page that I read every day now. Like it's, part of the crypto news that I consume. It's like Daily Gwei, like from ETH Finance, Bankless from ETH Finance, the Daily, of course, from ETH Finance, and all that stuff is just really great that, the community that you guys made was able to, produce so many wonderful ideas and people to champion those ideas. It's truly amazing. So I think you should definitely take some kudos for that. Like, you were part of helping that environment, like fostering that environment and bringing all those ideas forward. So it's wonderful. Tell me a little bit about how ETH Trader and ETH Finance split. So, well, how ETH Finance came out of ETH Trader. So you were mentioning earlier, like there was karma points and stuff. Why don't you tell us about what happened there?
Yeah, sure. So there was a discussion by Carl, the lead moderator. He had been working on a smart contract, which was going to be able to take, is it API data from Reddit and the karma points that people had and convert them into an ERC20 token as part of a whitelist. And so anybody that had been on the sub for, from this day to this date at least, or whatever the window was, they took a snapshot of it. So we signed an NDA and we started going into discussions with the Reddit Red Hats about this endeavor. And one of my concerns was Reddit accounts are free. How do you fight the Sybil problem here? Because people would just be karma whoring and karma farming and backstroking each other, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it just didn't sit well with me. But the thing that really, really set me off personally, but also 6 other moderators in all, was that there was going to be a big airdrop to the moderators to the tune of several $1,000s worth of tokens.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would be like, hey, that's great. Personally, for me, public-facing moderator, doxed, completely doxed. I don't want the monkey on my back. I didn't want to be paid for something I felt was like a duty and a volunteer thing. Yeah. And I really wanted them, if we're going to do this, let's just do it outright. Everybody starts at zero. They just didn't want to do that. They felt like we put in the work. They, as in like just 2 or 3 of the moderators at the top. And they put in the work, so it was just going to happen. Pretty soon, I wasn't even invited back to meetings anymore. Nobody else was going to the meetings. In fact, there was like 2 well-known trolls that were going to the meetings. I mean, they were like trolls. And I'm like, what are we doing? And it was like, okay, I don't know when this is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm considering like stepping down.
Yeah.
And, or considering like, why don't we consider our options? We were in a back channel, and I knew there was like 6 moderators that were going to be okay with having a conversation about leaving. Either we leave, and that's that, or we go start a new sub. And DC Investor reached out, and he said, I have a subreddit that I've been squatting on called ETH Finance. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, how long have you had? He said, I just made it like a few months ago. I said, well, cool. And he's like, you guys can have it if you want to do it, and I'll help see it through that you get situated. So if you don't know anything about DC Investor, he was a consultant for businesses and institutions and governments and the government agencies in Washington. So he knows all about coordination. Like the man is legit. And so 6 moderators all at the same time, we opened up ETH Finance, got it ready, and then poof, we were gone within immediately. Prior to that, a lot of people don't know this because it was just kind of comical, was that when the dust up was getting really loud from my perspective, the lead mod actually removed all of my moderator capabilities, but I still showed up on the sidebar as a moderator, but I couldn't do anything. I'm like, he didn't even tell me. He had already gotten rid of Adam Cochran. Do you know Adam S. Cochran?
Yeah,
he's on Twitter. Yeah. He like just booted him because part of the reason why this whole thing happened was Adam wanted to have like his Crypto and Coffee like newsletter podcast listed as like a resource, and Carl didn't want to have that. Like it was going to be a conflict of interest for a moderator to have their. It would be like listing rocket fuel on the sidebar of Rocket Pool on Reddit. It's like, come on. It's all within, it's part of what we do. Yeah. And it was like, he didn't even entertain. We didn't even have a vote as a moderation team. He just unilaterally kicked the guy. And I'm like, bro, you're not doing that. We got to have some standards around here. You can't just like go dictatorship. Well, he did. I was wrong. He did. And then my my ability to do any mod actions was removed. And then it was like, okay, I think we're done here. Mr. Yukon C and myself both posted a video. C'est la vie. We thought we were going to be done forever. You know, we'd go do this little sleepy. Every time somebody tries to do a subreddit, it's so hard to network and bootstrap people in. But for whatever reason, it worked. And people just kind of sided with us because they knew that we were in it for the tech, as they say. We really were.
For me, I used to lurk on ETH Trader, and it was a place I used to check fairly regularly, but I didn't really have too much ETH at the time. Like, I started buying ETH a lot more during the crash in 2018, 2019, and then 2020 is when I bought most of my ETH. But
good for you.
What happened was like I said, I wasn't around that much. So I remember one day I was like, reading ETH Trader, and then I went away for a few days, and I came back and I was like, what happened here? Where's everyone gone?
That's right. The daily was like a ghost town.
Exactly.
And I'm not even happy about it. It just showed me that like the people who cared really, really, really cared. Yeah. And then you came back to a ghost town with like a tumbleweed.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think I saw some message somewhere and someone was like, oh yeah, everyone's on ETH Finance now. And I went there and it was like all the people who I knew. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is where the party's at now. So that's when I was like getting back into it. And yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a jolt. So to hear all the drama from the side. So what ended up happening with those tokens? They were called donuts, right? Like
they still have them.
Yeah. And are they worth anything? Or did those guys make money from it?
Oh yeah. I burned 3 million of them. I sent them to the 00 address, 0x0 or whatever. Yeah. No, I mean, the karma farming's going wonderful over there. So I don't know if your viewers know this, but like ETH Trader I commend Carl for coming up with a smart contract that could introduce the concept of tokenizing karma. Although we don't agree on, that it's all water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned, because the experiment, although super flawed, it was still an experiment worth trying. I just didn't like the way it was being implemented. Yeah. Reddit went on to do community points for our cryptocurrency and Fortnite VR. And what the thing that I felt the most sorry for Carl for is that when Reddit came out with those big announcements about those two subs doing cryptocurrency points and karma interactions, they gave no credit to ETH Trader. Why? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I don't understand how Reddit could do two full big subreddits, implement an ERC20 tokenization of karma thing, and not talk about where it started.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there was a breakdown in conversation at some point with Carl and the team, but I felt like that was such a slap in the community, and shame on them. Yeah, and now they got rid of it just like that. So it just goes to show you can't do this Web3 back to Web2 nonsense, because somebody can always pull the plug. Just like they can print donuts out of thin air. That was another sticky point, was like, well, where's the code? How's the community supposed to know that this is law? It's not decentralized. So it's just a switch. And it ended up being a switch. Yeah. And I think it was novel to try out, but yeah, money ruins things. In that scenario, money ruins things. Yeah. It was just kind of a shame that it had to come to that. And there was also like just differences in moderation. Like I've always said, there's no freedom of speech on ETH Finance. There just isn't. We're just not going to do it. Either you're going to be kind and you're going to be thoughtful. We're not going to let people just incessantly troll politics in the name of free speech. This isn't a free speech subreddit. It's a subreddit about Ethereum and related assets and macroeconomics, and just be nice. If you're not nice, I mean, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to let you know you're not nice before a moderator steps in. Absolutely. You know what? You know how I get so much Cheeto dust and Mountain Dew in me is like by not being a mod. Just the community does a really good job self-moderating. I don't have to do anything, so I just sit there eat the Cheetos.
Nice. So how was the 2018, 2019, 2020 bear market for you? Like, how did you experience that time?
Terrible. Yeah. I had the hack. And then I also had a 5-year plan in my head. Let's see, it would have been, I told myself in 2020, 5 years to the day since I bought Bitcoin, that I would cash out some just to pay off some debts or whatever. I ended up selling a bunch of coins at like $120 because I said on a calendar that's what I was going to do, and I did my plan, and it was foolish. Why do an arbitrary date? I mean, I could have waited or could have done some a little sooner than that. But I don't. It doesn't really bug me. You learn a lot of lessons along the way, and there's also projects like Funfair and OMG that I was really into, and those didn't really pan out very good.
Yep.
Gods Unchained cards. I love the cards, and the game is great, but I probably put way too much money into that. But I had to have that Genesis set, Yeah. I just, you just make some plays here and there that are good and some that aren't so good. These days, I'm so comfortable in the bear markets. It's sad. Like, I don't know what it is. Because I'm like, I don't know what I do with this money now. Like, I don't want the fiat if I can help it. I want to, I mean, there's a lot of people that are, the money doesn't make them happy,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it is. But you never, what is the old joke? Money doesn't bring happiness, but you never see a person crying on a jet ski.
That's a good one.
You can rent a jet ski. How about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can rent it for an hour or a day. No problem. How was it then when we got to 2020 and like the food token mania started? How was it being in ETH Finance back then?
What token? What mania?
The food tokens, like the sushi swap and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know what it is? I feel like it was the shitcoin roulette with Bitcoin. Then it was the ICO craze of 2017. Then you had all the food mania. Then you had like DeFi summer. Then you had the NFT thing. Now it's going to be like all this layer 2 or 3 or whatever layer we're on now, like mania with points. You got points now. They don't call them tokens. God, it's like the same stuff that gets repackaged and resold over and over and over. And I'm fully convinced a lot of it's just the same teams just rinsing the same money in and out. There's always some. Now it's like the meme coins. Like if you thought Doge was funny, wait till we do like Pepe rocket ship guy thing, and then they have this big fake Discord that has 20,000 people solving riddles and puzzles, and then that thing collapses, gets rugged, and they spin up another thing. And yeah, some of that stuff, whack, to be quite honest, is very tiring as a moderator because two things happen. Number one, it gets so noisy in there, it pisses people off. And then the second thing is why don't you guys make a second thread for all this stuff on the front page, which invariably a week later is empty. So it's one of those deals where you have to suffer through it, and so do I. Like squashing we can pretty easily tell who's a paid shill and who's not. I mean, I say we can easily tell. I wouldn't say it's always the case. But usually you can sniff out those accounts pretty quickly. And I mean, it's just, you hold down control on your keyboard and you click their username and you look at their history, comments, and their posts. And if it's just 12 things that are like, oh my gosh, such big money made, 20%, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's all they say. Bye. That's not freedom of speech, man.
Nope. So, I think at this time, this is around the time that you were thinking of leaving teaching, right? Like, how was that discussion going on, like with your family? Like, what was going on with that?
Yeah. So, 18 years is about 13 years longer than the average teacher stays in the profession.
I was 7 years for me.
Yeah. As an elementary school music teacher, I have to sing falsetto a lot, and my voice was getting strained by the end of the day. It's just, there's only so much singing at the kindergarten level that, I can handle. I'm not one of the Beach Boys. So it was time to try new things, as we like to tell kindergartners. Why don't you eat the broccoli on your tray? Well, I was already producing videos and doing stuff in that realm a little bit. What really pushed me over the edge and into video creation was actually the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, obviously school shut down for a year. Depression, total depression, because it was just sitting at home is not good for me. And teaching music on Zoom is a joke because no one shows up. And so then when we did go back to school, we're singing with masks on. Here's what I saw. I didn't see any parents in the building. They couldn't come in the building. I saw the CDC shut down. They couldn't play any instruments that required holding an instrument in their hand and blowing into it. They had to have a mask on. If they were going to sing, they were going to have to sing with their masks on, which is stupid. And then they couldn't even bring in birthday treats to share with their friends. They couldn't commiserate with other classrooms for longer than 10 minutes at a time at recess, outdoors, with masks on. I mean, it was just like we were one step away from having them drink sanitizer. It was, and the fact of the matter was, I'm on my soapbox. I'm not going to get off it for a second. I'm on my soapbox with this, is that we did so much irreparable damage to young children, especially under 18, then we could have. It's going to take 10 years to wipe away 2 years of crap. I mean, it may not even happen with that generation, sadly, because they just lost so much during that time. So I wasn't going to let that beat me down. No, sirree. So what I did was I took a camera, I bought a lens, I bought a gimbal, and I would start to film the kids playing instruments in the classroom. And sometimes I'd put like music underneath it or whatever, but I was sharing it on YouTube and on Facebook to the families, and they could see their kids in the school having a good time in high quality, film. It wasn't, it was a Panasonic GH5. High enough quality anyway. And I started getting myself acquainted with like Adobe Premiere, and I'm like, man, I really like this. Like, I feel like I might have an eye for this actually, because I used to fiddle around with video stuff, and I got to thinking, well, then this little team called the Kansas City Chiefs went to the Super Bowl that year. And there was this guy named Blaine Howard that had a country song that was celebrating the Kansas City Chiefs going back, and it was called Run It Back. And so I reached out to Blaine Howard, and I'm like, see, we can't have music concerts, right? But we can do music videos. And I asked Blaine Howard's a record producer, I said, can I get the instrumental track of this song? Because I want to have my kids learn how to sing it, and I want to make a music video of them singing. I said, better yet, can I have both the instrumental and can I have the original? And would you allow me to remix the song using the kids' voices at times with Blaine Howard's voice? And I showed them an example of a music video that I shot. It was True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. And they said, do whatever you want. This is great. I'm like, really? Let's go.
That's amazing.
So I got a camera together, and I went on camera, and I just like looked at the lens. And I told all the parents in the school district, we're shooting a music video tomorrow. And I'm talking to them like I am you right now. I said, I don't want them just to show up with the red Chiefs jersey on. I want them to be the most crazed fanatic fans for the Chiefs kingdom that you can think of. And I took a video out front of the school of a piece of global trussing, which is what you use to hang lights on at a concert, because I own 40 feet of it or whatever. I said, I'm going to put this trussing out in front of the school. If any of you know how to make some letters show up on this thing, it says Run It Back or KC Chiefs, you guys could do that. And if you guys have any ideas of other things we could do, like, does anybody know how to get a bunch of balloons out here? We'll get some buses and we'll park them in a certain way or blah, blah, blah. You will not believe what 12 hours look like later on. So early in the morning, these guys that have like insulated wall company, they cut out these big giant styrofoam insulated wall pieces that are like 6-foot tall letters, and it says "Run It Back," and they're zip tying them on the Global Trust. I mean, it's early in the morning. I'm out there filming them doing that because I'm like, that's kick-ass, like B-roll. And it happened to be Hot Chocolate with the Hero Day, which is where like 15 sheriff's department members come, police officers in uniform come to the school and have a cup of hot cocoa 6 feet apart from a kid and ask them how their day's going. I'm like, hell, why don't you guys hold on to those letters real quick and I'll film you and I'll get that B-roll. Then this lady comes up, where can I park my van? I got a balloon arch. We had this giant balloon arch inside the doorway. And then they were like, we got enough air in here in these tanks. We can do like 400 or 500 balloons in the hallways. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go, you know. So anyway, I'm filming the kids. The finale of the was like 300 kids lining the hallway. The CDC gave us like 8 minutes to be in the hallway. So we did everything according to the CDC guidelines. I'm in tears editing because I know it's going to be a hit. And I don't say that. I mean, I'm not egotistical or anything.
Yeah.
I invited a couple of parents to come in and just verify that what I was seeing was what it was. And they were like, they were in tears, like, because the parents have been starved and the kids have been starved of anything meaningful as a community. It was all rugged from, the world for that pandemic. And so we released it to the record label and Blaine Howard's team to review it. And they were just blown away. They said, we're going to get our social media person with you. And like I teamed up with them. We released it on my business page on Facebook, as well as the school's page, as well as Blaine Howard's page. Simultaneously, it got dropped and then it got promoted. The music version of our song got played on 4 different radio stations. 2 of them kept in regular rotation, even to the next year. They still, every now and then, you can still turn on the radio in Kansas City 106.5 The Wolf, and they'll have what I call the Kid Kingdom remix of Blaine Howard's song "Run It Back." And nice. So it got airplay also down in Tampa, which is where the Super Bowl was. The video got over 1 million views across all the social media channels, including Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And then we got interviewed by 4 TV stations. We set up a camera in the room with some of the kids and myself, responsibly socially distanced, of course. And we did interviews with like these TV stations because they were starved for like, there was nothing felt good in the local media. Yeah. Other than the fact that Chiefs were going, but it felt hollow. It was just such a different freaking time. So anyway, to wrap up that story, that was in February, and I had already decided I was not coming back as a teacher, and they didn't know that yet. And so I got hired by Grid Plus and to do video work for the Lattice one. And I had gotten a job offer as of January 1st. And we shot that music video in February. I already knew I was leaving. I was already doing part-time, like 5, 6, 7 hours a week for Justin and the team at Grid Plus. And then, and then it was just a lot of tears because I never had a final concert with all the kids in the room again. And, my wife teaches there now, so I still stop in there, but now that I've been gone for like 3 years or so, there's less and less hugs because they don't know who I am, but my wife's the greatest teacher in the whole building, for real. She's still there. She's holding down the fort.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was once that music video dropped, if anybody wants to look it up, if you just go to YouTube and type in "Run It Back Kid Kingdom Remix," slap on some headphones and go for a ride. That was filmed in 1 day with 24 hours notice on 1 camera on 1 lens. And
amazing.
It was
I saw you posting in ETH Finance years ago, and I thought it was the most amazing thing. I watched it. It was really, really great. So it just shows your creativity.
Yeah, I've never produced anything like that since. That was like a, I hate to get all Catholic on you, but it was the Holy Spirit. That was the Holy Spirit moment, man. I have no other way to like describe how everything that could have went right happened. It was just it was amazing. The parents were just like, I mean, they had less than 24 hours notice that was even happening. And when you look at that video, it's just tremendous, man. It's just
amazing.
crazy.
Okay, I want to change the subject back to ETH Finance now.
Sure.
So in 2021, something amazing / divisive happened in ETH Finance, which was an NFT airdrop to community members. So this was the height of NFT mania, and everybody was talking about NFTs and how they were amazing. And a certain member of the community decided to drop an NFT to people who had posted in the community. Why don't you tell us about that whole story? Because that's part of the reason why we're here today, right? Like the chain reaction from there to now. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So shout out to Ethereum. It was touch and go there for a minute. So first of all, we've always said that like the subreddit is not for sale. Like we're just not going to be bought and paid for. And in many ways, that's kind of how we felt the donut experiment on eTrader. I mean, if you really think about it, somebody could have airdropped a bunch of donuts on the moderators to allow certain projects to get more visibility, blah, 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 blah. We had been approached by other people that wanted to use like Reddit Karma in a way to do NFT drops, blah, blah, blah. And then Ethereum comes along and they've got an NFT and it felt really airtight. I mean, we were, as mods, we were like, I don't know, should we just say no out of principle still? Because this looks kind of fun. It celebrates the people that post in the daily. It celebrates longtime community members. Nothing's for sale. It's an airdrop. You're getting whitelisted on, And I think we just kind of said, let's do it. Why not? Let's do it. Well, two things happened. We didn't realize two things. One is that people like Twigwam and Beer Belly Fat Ass posted on the front page all the time. So they were always doing articles. I mean, an amazing amount of articles. Well, they weren't eligible because they didn't post anything in the daily. So they didn't land on the whitelist, even though they were there from the very beginning. And I'm still friends with both of them to this day in a back channel. They left because they were like, that sucks. Why? But there was just no way to, we didn't know of a way, and I wasn't like technically averse to it. It was specifically based off of Karma in the daily. And it was a snapshot in time, and it just, okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing we didn't understand was that the ongoing trading fees of that NFT were going to be able to go back to Ethereum in perpetuity forever and ever. And it was like, okay, hold the phone. That guy, we didn't know that. That was kind of like that's a major detail. I mean, what if this thing blows up? And then it was like, gosh, what are we going to do? And then it was like getting really, really heated, and to the point of, why do the moderators have to decide this? And I remember this was like a 3 a.m. moment, literally waking up in a sweat, probably urine, but we'll just say that neither one of those are true. But I remember just having the aha moment of, wait a second, this is a DAO. So now whoever holds this NFT, let's let the DAO decide. So the moderators don't have to do it. Ethereum doesn't have to be sour grapes about it, because I mean, it was kind of like, really, we were thinking, he thought maybe 100 ETH was going to be a decent cap. A 32 ETH validator was a decent. We're like, it's either going to be none, 1, 32, or 100. I think we're like the 4 choices or something. And I'm like, I'm putting my hands up. This is not my decision. Personally, we took the heat for allowing it to be whitelisted, saying that we approve it as moderators, but we just didn't do the work. We didn't know that there was going to be this in perpetuity, infinity royalty fees. I mean, that's just limitation of my understanding. Anyway, so the DAO decided, and it's done. And Ethereum is such a valued community member on ETH Finance and on the EV Mavericks Discord. And look what the EV Mavericks are doing. I mean, it's just, That's why they host that show on Discord. I'm so happy that we get to. I'm glad we get to do the EV Mavericks NFT thing. We kind of said, kind of like the DAO hack, this will be our one. We're not going to keep doing more NFT drops. You know, if for now it's like it doesn't really matter what the moderators think on ETH Finance. Other people can do NFT drops on the people that hold the EV Mavericks, right? So let them figure it out. And I think they did do some stuff like pandas, and there was some cross pollination with other NFT projects out there. So again, water under the bridge. It was awesome. Everybody's on good terms. The DAO decided. I think Ether has to be happy with the result. I think the DAO's happy with the result, and it's a very vibrant community to this day. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And the Daily Dudes podcast takes their place there on Fridays on 12 Eastern is still a thing after a year. So it's not like the Mavericks went to Discord and left Reddit. No, they're still here. And the best part is you know, they were kind of asking my thoughts about moderating the Discord. I'm like, the less you token gate it with that NFT, the better. You know, token gate the most critical parts of the Discord. Other than that, keep it as open as possible. Because there's only 1,324 of them to begin with, and some people own more than one. So that's
really cool. Yeah, I got my holy boy, number 323, not quite number 324, but I'm a proud owner of that NFT up to now. You know, like I never sold him. I did list it for sale, I'll admit, but it didn't hit. And then after that, I've had no intention of selling it. So I love my EV Maverick, and I'm actually like really like, even now I pop into that Discord sometimes and I just like, you know, talk about whatever I want to talk about, and people really like listen. So it's really wonderful to be part of the community. I remember when it first started, they did a lion follow lion, like Lion Pride on Twitter, and all the lions just kind of like followed each other, and it was just a really great. Yeah, everyone had like the lion NFT profile picture. It was really wonderful. Like I really feel like that was a great thing that came out of ETH Finance, you know?
And you know what's funny, Whack Whack? I wonder if you ever hear this. Like sometimes I'll talk to people on Twitter or on the podcast, and I'll be like, oh yeah, the EV Mavericks, that's the NFTs that look like the little pixelated lions. And they're like, oh, that's you guys? I'm like, yeah, that's us. You know what? All of those people I run into on Twitter are smart, and they're not assholes.
Nice. That's a really good self-selection.
Yeah, the Mavericks are like the shine that they'll say, yeah, I love engaging with them. They seem to be like decent people, and like the most decent, you know?
Absolutely. It's really great. Tell me about your job with Grid Plus. Like what's going on there? Like, are you still doing it? Like, I know you did some other stuff with like Kevin Owocki as well with the Green Pill. Yeah. Like, is this your full-time job now? Like, you're a crypto content producer? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so I worked for Grid Plus from June 1st of 2020, I think, and then through 2020. I don't know. I worked for them for a little over 2 years. 2021 to 2023. So it was last April. They, during the bear market and everything, they cut back on staff. So I went away from full-time, although recently I've produced some content for them, just some, in fact, I did a thing for them a couple of weeks ago for a gaming convention, and they got this work that I produced with the lattice spinning around, and it's like an advertisement. It came out pretty nice. And then, the Green Pill Network, I worked for Kevin Owocki for a short time. He has a book called Green Pill, and in there are like 8 high-level concepts that everybody should understand. It was like 8 forms of capitalism. What is quadratic voting? What is quadratic funding? The prisoner's dilemma, and several other, bentoism. There's several topics like that. And his exact words to me on the phone were, JT, can you make these concepts a little less hippy dippy Colorado hacky sacky and make them a little more down home Kansas City for me? Yeah, I'll give it a shot. So I had some of the most fun times editing those that series of 8 videos, because the script you're taking this high level content, trying to break it down in meaningful ways at a level that most people can understand and relate to. And I was able to I used a toy store for a backdrop. I used a sushi restaurant for a backdrop, complete with the chef behind me. There's a playlist on the Green Pill YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but basically I would do that, or I would just recite essays from other people and have some cool imagery. I've got a drone and stuff, so it was so fun. And then most recently, I was editing the Green Pill podcast, and so I went from Grid Plus to Green Pill, and I've done a couple other projects that are just like kind of one-offs. But currently, we just wrapped up with Rocket School. But I guess before I get there, I should say that a lot of my projects have wrapped up. So if anybody's looking for a content producer, your guy.
I was going to shill you. You don't have to shill yourself. So if anyone's looking for a content producer, JT's your guy. That's so good, though.
I got to get back to my $50 a week investing.
Yeah. So, okay. Tell me now about Rocket School, right? So that's the main thing that we're here talking about today. It's a project of the EV Mavericks. You got a grant from ETH. You got a grant from the Rocket Pool community. What exactly is Rocket School?
Rocket School is an educational curriculum on how to stake on Rocket Pool, and it's and my tagline that I invented for this project, and I heard this used by somebody else, but it's easy enough from Zoomer to Boomer. Anybody can do it.
Amazing.
So we have a pretty good staff of people. Schifrin and Doubt Stars, Juxta, another position, Interweaver, Austin ST, myself, and a couple other people on Discord. Essentially, the way that we made the bread for this series was we took the Rocket Pool documentation, we kind of segmented it out into 3 tranches that are kind of like, you know, big blocks of sections. And then what we did was juxta another position. I kind of came up with an idea of how to do this because I was not technical enough to run a node. So we had Juxta, who was going to run a node anyway, go through the Rocket Pool documentation, make all the screen captures, and kind of talk through it the way as he was going, because he was going to be able to use the correct terminology. And then what I did was I take his screen capture videos, convert them into scripts, and then get the scripts read through by the team. And then we would greenlight the scripts, and then I would figure out ways to film it to make it relatable and fun, and try to put a little, like, for lack of a better word, JT-ify it a bit to make it engaging and exciting for people to learn how to do staking. So the goal was to make like this 24-part video series, complete with the website and step-by-step commands, just to make it as easy as possible, including like copy code blocks and whatever. So the 3-month project only took 5 months to complete, which is less than 1 Lubin, and we were able to get it pushed out the door and got the birdie out of the nest at ETH Denver this year. That was always the goal, was like, let's make this sucker go live at ETH Denver.
Okay, so we'll come back to the ETH Denver part in a bit, but can you tell me about the 3 different tranches? Like, what do you guys cover in the videos?
Yeah, so the first bit is like, what is Ethereum? What is Ethereum staking? What is Rocket Pool staking? And then it's like setting up the node, and then it's like setting up Rocket Pool, all the way to claiming your reward. So you have these three big chunks to get through. And there's even been like talk of, you know, as you complete steps, this goes back again to my education idea. Maybe give people POAPs for completing each of the pages or whatever. So
nice.
You know, it's been fun to see. I just don't know of anything like it out there. And, you know, I like to say we went over budget, but we didn't get paid for it. But we saw it all the way through to the end, and I just don't know if there's any other projects out there that have such a approachable way of doing it. But, you know, in an industry where you can have some really nice animations and some good voiceover techniques with like screen captures, but like I don't know, to have like a dude standing by a pond teaching about MEV with actual geese.
Ducks, yeah,
I
geese,
call them
yeah,
ducks, but they're geese,
yeah.
which is part of the joke. But anyway, and driving that van around,
with the drone
old
footage.
1971 like Volkswagen van, dude. The story on that van. If anybody watches the Rocket School series, the very first video in the series shows me walking out of what looks to be my house, but it's like a tough shed, and like I get in this like old Volkswagen van that's painted orange. Dude, that is a real van in my town. My I was over at my brother-in-law's house picking up a smoker of all things because I like to do barbecue. And his friend is sitting there in the driveway with this orange VW van. I'm like, I had just started working on the Rocket School thing, and I said, I don't know when I'm going to need this van, but I'm definitely going to need it. And I need your phone number. And I want you to if you get a rando calling you in about 2 months from now, will you please pick up the phone? And he did. And I gave him $100 and I drove it around town for like 2 hours. I'm just like, it's so crusty and awesome. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. He's like, anytime, man. I mean, paying him $100 for 2 hours. He's like, you're going to have to lay on the starter because she's a little cold in the mornings. I'm married to one of them. Oh, yeah. So that was just like, again, that was just like that divine intervention that this orange van, it wasn't just orange, it was like rocket pool orange.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking me, like, you're driving that to Denver?
Oh, you should have. That would have been so great.
I wouldn't drive
it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to Denver with that, you're putting that sucker on a trailer. I mean,
Okay,
it's...
so Fizz turned up in one of your videos. What's the story there?
He was asking me how the Rocket School thing was going, and I was like, really good. And then we have a what is Ethereum and what is Ethereum staking video, and I just said, why don't you get on it? Why don't you get on a plane and come to Kansas City and we'll shoot it? He's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'll book it today. And that was that. Like, plain and simple. I mean, he's so willing to like pitch in and help out with, SuperFiz is really accessible about 6 hours a day for one day. You can get that out of him. He'll fly anywhere for it. And then he'll jump on the plane and fly right back home. Yeah. I think he's married to the same person I am. So he's a family guy first, man. The guy really just, but he will, if it feels right, he'll do it.
He's come to Chicago for our meetups twice 2 years in a row now, where he flies in the morning, spends the afternoon with us, and he's gone at night. Like, it's awesome. It's amazing. Like,
he came to the studio, and my studio is like half an hour from the airport, and I think he rented a car, and he's like, don't worry about picking me up. He's like, I don't want to put you out. He just showed up at the office, and that was that.
Amazing.
I mean, we filmed it, and then I took him to a local restaurant, and he refused to have me buy him dinner. And it's like, man, you're such a jewel. That dude is such a jewel.
He really is, honestly. He's like one of my favorite people in crypto. And I tell him that I love him like every time I see him. So it was really great to see him in East Denver. So, because he popped in for a day for your barbecue, right? Like that was a nice thing that happened. So
one more thing about SuperFiz is I'm always disgusted when people throw shade on that man. Every now and then you'll see somebody that's got something to say to him on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you got to ignore a lot of trolls on Twitter, but I've seen people really unfairly throw shade on him, and I feel like it's had kind of a chilling effect. And I just would ask anybody out there that is inclined to do that just to knock it off, because he's one of the best people in the whole space, not just Ethereum, but like in crypto in general. I mean, the dude, decentralization first. He says it more times a day than anybody else that I know. The guy really gets it.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So let's go back to Rocket School. You made all the episodes, then like who did what with the website and all that kind of stuff. Like you already shouted out some people earlier, but maybe you can tell me a little bit about what each of them did.
Okay, so I think Interweaver kind of takes care of most of the. Let me back up. So Doubt starting at the top, is kind of like the project manager. She's the one that kind of like bridged the gap, I think, a little bit with Schifrin and some of the other members up there. Interweaver works mainly on the website, but really like Interweaver, Austin ST, Juxta did all the screen capture stuff, but those three people right there, whenever we would have meetings, they would review the videos and go through them like literally line by line, making sure that like the words that are coming out of my mouth are the correct phrases with the correct like terminology. Like, I don't know what I did at that time, didn't know what sudo meant in Linux. I didn't know what SSH meant. I didn't, Ubuntu, like, is it Haleski or Haleshki? So that all these words mean things. So they were like the technical advisors. I was the only one that was working full time on it, and it was a lot because, if you kind of make a mistake, you have to figure out a way to dub in your voice, dub in some B-roll, and dub in a new terminal window. If the protocol changed during that time, we'd have to go back and kind of brush stuff up. As of Denver, though, we just kind of had to put a pin in it at where it is right now, because obviously things are going to change as Ethereum changes. Rocket Pool is going to change. So hopefully we can, keep producing some grant monies to freshen up things from time to time. And because I've still got my rockets here, I'm not getting rid of these guys. I bought these.
I love it.
These are actually vintage erector set models I found on eBay.
Yeah.
Whack Whack Attack. You want to take a guess at what both of these rockets cost off of eBay?
$19.45.
No, these are vintage. These are legit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
vintage.
$126.52.
Yeah, that's actually really pretty good. So they were listed for like $200 a piece, and I was able to hornswoggle the guy for $250 for both of them.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
No, he had them for about $150. I think he had them for around the price you were talking about, but I bought both of them. But anyway, yeah. So if we need to fire up the studio again, my point is I still got the whole set.
Yeah, nice.
I hope to. Hopefully they'll have me again.
How was ETH Denver? Was this like your first ETH Denver? Had you been before?
This is my third one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my third one. The first one, I was a booth girl for Grid Plus. Mm-hmm. So I was out there showing some leg and getting people to come over to the booth to buy some Lattice ones. And they said, "No, you're weird. Take off the leotard." No, that's not true. Not all of it. And then the second time last year I went, it was funny. Kevin Owaki, he's had my barbecue before, and he was like, "Hey," I reached out to him last year. I said, "Hey, I think I might want to drive my van to an Airbnb if you'll have me, and I'll cook." And last year I cooked for Kevin Owaki and the Green Pill folks, and some people from Gitcoin and Consensus came through. It was really good. It was good enough they invited me back this year. So I cooked again. I did 90 pounds of pork butt. I brought 2 smokers and 60 jars of rub. I made 30 pounds of rub in all and gave it all away. If anybody wanted to tip me, they could. And everybody ate. There wasn't anything that went to the trash besides maybe a few beans and a lot of smiles. So, I brought that Kansas City to the hippy dippy hacky sacky Colorado.
Yeah.
So I'll continue to do so. Brian, Sean Adams, and David from Bankless want me to go cook at their Airbnb and permissionless in Salt Lake City. So I haven't decided how that's going to go down because that is a little bit longer drive.
Yeah.
And I don't know about renting equipment out there. I mean, I guess there's a budget for everything. I'm sure they can afford it. They can they could put an ad out and make some enough money for me to get a box truck and some help.
I think so, probably.
And just fly out there, I mean, if David can go, mountain climbing, he can afford me to come barbecue.
Definitely.
They're really good. I cooked for them in Austin last year. It was a riot. My favorite thing, Whack, is like a lot of people don't know that I'm actually friends with those people, and they assume that I'm just like the hired chef with the smile. And it's like, man, we've been friends forever. And then I tell them a little bit about myself, and then but what's always neat is that they don't have Kansas City barbecue where they're from. Like there's people from like Asia, and they're blown away by the flavor. Some of them have never had barbecue before. I'm like, oh man, put this in your mouth. Let's go. You know.
Hey JT, you're here, but I can't see you and I can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Let me see.
I'm bouncing on my side. It says recording and I can see my face, and I'm going to mute my microphone and blow my nose. How about that? Checkity check, 1, 2. I hear you.
Yeah, I still can't see you or hear you. I don't know if you can hear me or see me.
I see you.
But maybe if you can just leave the room and then come back. And I'll just leave a recording and I'll edit it out later. Hey,
yo.
Sorry, yeah, you're back and you're all good now. You're back and you're all good now.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you have like a time limitation.
Like no, I don't.
Time limitation.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. No.
Huh. Okay.
I'm getting the echo back now.
Stop recording and then I'll put on the echo cancellation.
So you were saying that you know those guys and you're like friends with David Hoffman and Ryan Short Adams.
Yeah. It's always neat, like going to the conferences, and when I'm barbecuing, a lot of the friends of theirs, they think that I'm just like the hired chef or whatever, but it turns out like I'm just one of them in disguise. And then they're like, "Oh my God, you drove your van from Kansas City to cook for us?" I'm like, "Yeah, I sure did." But it's always fun to get some smiles on the faces of people that don't get to have barbecue or good, they don't know what barbecue is some of the time. Some of the people are just like they're like vegetarians except for today. It puts a smile on my face. I always joke it's kind of my love language, feeding the crowd. If somebody knows how to cook something proper, I want to try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's always nice when I meet like a Midwest person, they're from Oklahoma or Texas. They're like, "Yeah, we got barbecue back home. I'll let you know." And then they try it and they're like, "Yeah, that's okay. That's pretty legit."
That's wonderful.
I'm not trying to be, like barbecue's a pretty known science. You just either know how to do it or you don't, and so it's not like I'm recreating the wheel or anything, but it sure is a different thing to have at a conference when so many of the times people are crammed in a restaurant across several tables, and the people that are sponsoring are like paying for everything, but it's like you're not even really having a conversation. Whereas like a backyard barbecue, you can move around freely, you can bring your own drinks, you can go through the food line a second time, so it's a better communication device. I kind of look at those barbecues as being like the best networking takes place outside the conference, if that makes sense. So
absolutely, that makes sense.
I think barbecue is like a universal language of like getting together around a picnic table and getting some serious conversations going with some good food.
That's awesome. So at ETH Denver, then after the barbecue, then you came to Denver Liftoff and you presented Rocket School. Like, how was that experience for you all?
Amazing. First time I've ever presented. That's the first time I've ever been on a stage as like a person doing anything. It was really special. And what made it more special was that so many of the team members were in person together for the first time too.
Yeah.
So I had met Austin ST at previous conferences, and I'd met Doubt Stars before, but it was the first time meeting Juxta, and it was the first time meeting Schifrin. It was the first time, meeting you. I knew Ken from years past too. So it was just neat to like, how do I put it? I can feel what other teams must feel when you put a lot of sweat equity into a project, especially a public goods project where like you're investing your heart and soul in this thing. It was just really nice to be there in front of the crowd that we had. I'll never forget putting it in the classroom with the 30 or so people on the community discussion day. And I felt a great sense of relief when like my jokes were landing. Like when I got to hear and see people's reaction, it was like, this is going to work. This works. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be engaging, and I hope people really appreciate it. Because, you know, there was discussion early on about like, how viable is this going to be? Like, we can't, if once we start this project, we got to kind of see it through no matter how hard it is. And I'm like, I'm all in. I'm an all in guy. Like when I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it, and I'll do it better than you expect. That's how I am. That's how I want other people to be for me too. You know, just put a bow on it, man. You know, really dig in and make it worthwhile. Because you know, the only trees that you ever get fruit on are the ones you plant properly, and that's just kind of how it is in my world. It always has been. You know, it didn't matter when I was a teacher working in. I'd go to work at 3, 4 in the morning, and I'd literally be shoveling pigeon shit or stacking bricks in a dark basement in an empty building somewhere. But it was like, I made the stack of bricks neat, and that pile of shit was swept up and cleaned, you know? Like, you just got to try to do your best every job you do. I was, you know, instilled that by my parents from a young age, and I carry it on to my kids too. And and I'm not great, like, you can see in the videos that any time that JT makes a mistake or a flaw or whatever, it's at my own expense. It's never at the expense of like the students in the crowd. I never talk down. I always like we're in the same room together trying to figure this thing out. You know? So yeah. There's times when I would be like rattling off the commands and I would just say, or whatever it says below the video, right? Like / this, that, the other just copy it out of the description below.
Okay, JT, now my next question to you is, so when are you going to become a Rocket Pool node operator following your own guide?
Well, I have to now.
Yeah. You have
I have my node set up over here. I've already got Linux installed. I've already SSH. It's a headless machine, and the next step is to start syncing up the blockchain after installing Rocket Pool and getting all that.
It.
Yeah. So it's on its way. I wanted to get everything live at Denver first, and then I'm going to be a student of the curriculum. That's the beauty of this. That's what I told him before. I said, I said, I don't know how to do this stuff. The best way for me to learn is just to create the damn series. And Jux's in another position. He's like, I'm not either. He's like, we'll just do screen recordings as I go. He has a leg up on me because he is technical in nature. So a lot of what he was doing was following through the motions of things he already is antiquated with. Yeah. And so now I literally get to go to the website and start it at step 1 point, whatever, or 2. Actually, I don't need to do what is Ethereum.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so great. Well, congratulations. Like your labor of love and, you know, the work of all the team really shines, and the stuff that I've seen, I haven't followed the whole course yet because I'm already a node operator, of course, but like it's really wonderful. And it was so great to share you sharing the trailer at ETH Denver, like, you know, with the community day, like everyone was really into it and it was such good fun. Like your work really shines through. So congratulations to you and your team on that. Before we wrap up, JT, is there anything that you'd like to share with us that we maybe like skipped over or we didn't spend enough time on, like any of the stories that you want to go back to?
No, I think we covered everything. I am looking for some work. So if anybody's got anything out there they want to have out there in the world, and you don't mind holding me by the hand a little bit to get across the finish line, I'm ready to dig in. So I'm really excited to hear the feedback from the Rocket Pool community as time goes on. I really feel like the Rocket School should be and could be an evergreen opportunity for the protocol moving forward. So it might be that my next gig is just to keep on doing Rocket School, because I can easily see that there's so many other subject matters that we can flesh out and build on this amazing program. And most of all, thank you, Whack Whack Attack, because you do this Rocket Fuel stuff on the daily, right? So good on you. You're on you're over a year now. Are you working up to a year in a row?
Yeah, no, just over 18 months. So I've done 360 or so episodes of the Daily
Dang.
Show and 20 of the interview episodes. So I've been cracking them out. Like, this is my job now, right? Like, I get a grant from the Rocket Pool GMC to produce this
That's
content,
fantastic.
and I made it my job. So I totally get that feeling like of just grabbing it and just running with it. And I feel like, the community response has been so wonderful and like made me feel so welcome with like the work that I do. And even like if I cashed out and did really well in this coming bull market, I would still keep making rocket fuel as long as
The
long as
same way.
the community wanted me to. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, big kudos to the Rocket Pool community as I've witnessed in Denver. Like, those folks really want to make Rocket Pool the best product out there. There's so much passion. They understand the problems. They understand the advantages, and they express it. And I feel like they're just working as hard as anybody. I mean, there's an all-volunteer group of people that were sitting in that conference room writing down ideas on how to make this thing what it should be. I didn't know it existed the way that it was presented to me in that conference at that moment. Like, the Rocket Pool community is galvanized. And I think you guys are really putting a nice edge on things. And I think that they are addressing hard problems head on, tokenomics and all those other things, and trying to figure out what's the next step, especially moving into this bull market now. There's things that need to be tackled, and I think you're going to get across the finish line when you got passion and soul like you guys do. So shout out to the Rocket Pool community. Shout out to ETH Staker. Shout out to the Mavericks. Thanks so much for the funding to get Rocket School lifted off the ground. And thank you, Whack Whack Attack, for having me on.
Thank you so much, JT. Until next time, keep doing what you're doing, man. Amazing.
All right. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.